Secretary.
I now recognize myself for 5 minutes. And Madam Secretary, you tout a historic recovery, a healthy labor market, and, quote, economic strength. And Larry Kudlow's name was invoked earlier in this hearing, the former Trump White House economic advisor. I know Larry Kudlow, and yes, he acknowledged that we're not in a recession right now. And I wouldn't presume to speak for Larry Kudlow, but I do think he would agree with me that asking Americans to feel good about Bidenomics is like asking them to smile during a root canal. The discomfort is just too hard to ignore. Americans continue to suffer from the effects of 40-year high inflation experienced throughout the Biden term so far, including lingering high prices. And the administration may wish to tout inflation numbers coming down. But Madam Secretary, you're an economist, and as you know, inflation, which is the rate of increase in prices, should not be confused with the overall level of prices. And prices have continued to rise even as the rate of inflation has fallen since the Fed began an aggressive program of monetary tightening and since House Republicans put a stop to Washington's spending spree. So as a result today, even with the decline in the rate of price increases, a family of four is paying $15,000 more per year just to purchase the same goods and services compared to the day President Biden took office. Yet the administration's plan to fix inflation caused by too much spending is even more spending. That's why the Inflation Reduction Act is perhaps the most misnamed legislation in American history. But this is a supply-demand mismatch. Too much spending created excess demand. Climate obsession constrained the supply of energy. But now the administration and the Fed is proposing to constrain the supply of credit, which will exacerbate inflation through this Basel III endgame, precisely when corporate and commercial real estate borrowers will need to refinance at higher rates. So, Secretary Yellen, I want to ask you about Basel III. The heterogeneity and business model diversity within the banking sector distributes and diffuses risk across the system, and I believe contributes to system-wide financial stability. The Basel III endgame proposal would de facto repeal regulatory tailoring, subjecting Category 3 and 4 regional banks to one-size-fits-all standards that currently apply to GSIBs, eliminate the use of internal risk models, and transition the industry and regulators toward a standardized framework, reducing business model diversity, and push financial intermediation and lending outside of the bank regulatory perimeter. The banking industry will get smaller and more concentrated as a result. How does any of this reduce systemic risk?
Well, having strong capital and liquidity and resolution standards, I believe, does diminish systemic risk, and I think we have seen a clear example of this in the ability of the banking system to weather the pandemic.
Yes, ma'am, and reclaiming my time, just real quick, reclaiming my time, you have said many times that our banking system is currently well capitalized. Do you agree that a less diverse banking system, a barbell banking system, banks under $100 billion not directly affected by this proposal, and Wall Street too big to fail banks, but no regional banks because of the forced consolidation this would provide, and less diverse business models that this proposal will produce, do you believe that that strengthens financial stability or undermines stability?
I think we benefit from having a diverse banking system with institutions that meet different needs of different firms and
I agree.
different households.
And Secretary,
banking agencies have received extensive comment on all of these issues.
I know, and just reclaiming my time because I only have a minute left, I agree with you that diversity and heterogeneity in the banking system and diverse business models actually diffuses risk, and FSOC should consider that as they consider Basel III endgame. So to my final question, continuing with this topic of consolidation, which I believe Basel III would accelerate, the OCC's recent proposal on mergers and acquisitions would ban mergers for nationally chartered bank, even if it's a transaction for a smaller CDFI or adding essential technology expertise. Even the smallest banks would face new scrutiny and prolonged delays of mergers that could threaten their viability. The OCC's proposal will increase the likelihood of costly and disorderly bank failures and decrease competition for GSIBs. Secretary Yellen, Won't this proposal increase systemic risk and reduce banking services?
I'm sorry, I think this is a question for the acting controller of the currency rather than...
Well, my time has expired, but I think it's an FSOC issue, is the fact that you would not have orderly consolidation and results in bank failures. That is a systemic risk issue for you, Madam Secretary. With that, my time has expired.